Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand on Film for the final part of our MANIFF coverage. Today I'm going to bring you a review of the film Mindset, which, as we record, I saw yesterday on Saturday the 19th of March. It's a film directed by Mikey. It stars Eilis Cahill, Steve Oram, Peter Bankolé, Jason Isaacs, and Julia Deakin. And the premise of the film is that Lucy, played by Eilis Cahill, is a disillusioned office clerk who lives in a dysfunctional relationship with a slovenly partner, Paul, is surprised to find herself on the cusp of a none too secret affair with her new work colleague, Daniel. The thrill of the chase for a shred of affection takes her mind off a problematic life, but she's not too sure that she'll ever leave Paul or that sex with someone else is the true answer to her problems. Before my review, I'll play you the trailer for the film.
What's for dinner?
How about cheese and beans on toast?
Are you off your pills?
No.
Tell us about your new script, Paul.
Yeah, well, it's about
It's a comedy, obviously.
Daniel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, are you new to town or just new to the office?
I moved down from London.
Up from London.
What's that?
Up. We are north of London, so it'll be up on the map.
I do like you, Lucy.
Men aren't interested in me.
What? What about Paul? He's interested in you, isn't he? You never want to shag me anymore.
Why are you being such an asshole?
As I mentioned at the end of the Bisping podcast, Mindset was a bit of a different watch for me at MANIFF, not because of the genre or the type of film that it is or anything like that, but because I know a lot of the production team. I know a lot of the people involved in the film. So Mikey was my lecturer at Bangor University a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years ago, we're talking 10 years now. Matt Owen, who edited the film, was in my year at university, and there were a number of different people who I had sort of loose connections with that were all involved in the film. So it was great to actually go to MANIFF yesterday as I record this and catch up with them all. It had been 10 years since I saw most of them. Obviously, we've been kind of following each other's sort of careers and what people have been doing on social media and things like that. And I know that Mikey's been dying for a long time to get a feature off the ground. So a couple of things to mention, just that I kind of gauged from conversations with Mikey, conversations with Matt, conversations with other people involved in the film. And I think this might be obvious if you watch the trailer, which you can still find on the MANIFF website, that this is a very low budget film. Mikey, in the Q&A after the film, discussed how he managed to get £10,000 from investors through sharing sort of shares of the film. He then managed to raise another 10,000, and then a final 10,000 was spent from his own pocket during post-production. Now, I'll share this quite early into the review. I think all of the low budget nature of the film, so the fact that it was shot for, let's say, £30,000, the majority of it was shot in Mikey's house. It's black and white, which I'll get to in a second, doesn't hinder the film at all. And it's the strength of the script that doesn't hinder the film at all. To mention the film being in black and white then, so again, it was disclosed during the Q&A that actually the film was shot in colour. And maybe cynically, I don't know, maybe kind of just as a kind of reflex of seeing a trailer in black and white, I assumed that they would have used black and white as a bit of a budgetary issue, as a budgetary reason to kind of get around the colouring process. But Mikey managed to discuss at the Q&A that the film was actually shot in colour, it was coloured in post, and then it was only a very, very late decision somewhere down the line that Mikey said, I think it needs to be in black and white. I think there's just going to be something that adds to it. And again, I don't think that hinders the film at all, as I've already mentioned. And like I mentioned before, this is Mikey's first feature. And as, you know, one of his students 10 years ago, we were kind of involved in the process with him in a sense, in that he was talking to us a lot about different films that he wanted to get off the ground. He'd shown us his BAFTA-winning film Breaking. He's shown us his other short film Stickers, some other things that he did at film school. And we were very much part of the conversation in terms of the development of a film that he was going to make called City, which ended up being a short film released in 2015. He went on to make another short film called Natalie, starring Kate Dickie, who you may be familiar with, and Mindset ended up being his first feature film. And a lot of the process, I think it's fair to say, struggled with in terms of finding investors and finding funding to make a feature film. So in the end, it became a decision of, we'll try and raise the money, and he's going to shoot it in his house. So even the process behind the film is an interesting one to look at. But talking about the film itself, so obviously we've mentioned that Lucy, she's this disillusioned office clerk. She lives with her partner, Paul, and Lucy is dependent on tablets. And we see that quite early on in the film, that she's taking tablets in one of those standard sort of day of the week pill containers. She takes them, I think, the first time, and then eventually she just begins to flush them down the toilet. And Paul clocks onto this quite early on. He says he's been taking the tablets because he's noticing, obviously, the difference in personality with the person that he's living with. Paul, on the other hand, is quite introverted. He's become locked away, probably from the complacency of his job. So he's a screenwriter. Now, obviously, a lot of that involves writing in an office from home. So he's not managing to get out of the house a lot. There's a good reoccurring motif about tennis, about how he wants to get out and play tennis. He wants to go out and play tennis with Lucy, but he's unable to do that. And it's almost he's struggling, I suppose, at this sense, with a little bit of social anxiety, with the fact that in the one scene where he manages to get out of his house, how far does he go? Is he actually going to go there? And really, his only interactions in the film come with those kind of post-work conversations with Lucy at their house, and or the postman, who, they seem to have this kind of dysfunctional relationship. It seems to be a reoccurring thing that this has happened, and a lot of the comedy actually stems from those interactions and from those conversations. There's some very authentic dialogue throughout the film, some really relatable conversations and moments that I'm sure anyone in a long-standing relationship will be able to see some truth in. And again, I think that is an absolute strength of the script, that Mikey has obviously written this thinking about maybe his own interactions with certain people, maybe relationships that he's had with other people, and he's got this idea of dialogue and this idea of the way that people talk to each other in real life situations, in those situations where you've been with your partner for X amount of years. What is that conversation going to be like on a Wednesday night after you finished work and one of you's been at home all day? Where do you go from there? Those kind of tit for tat conversations about one of you going to the shop because there's no bread in and all that kind of stuff. It all fits in really, really nicely with the mold of the film. The big kind of disruptor to the film's narrative is Daniel. So this new colleague of Lucy who sort of enters the film quite early on at a party at their house, and Lucy begins to develop some kind of relationship or infatuation with him. They go and play sports together, and then it kind of culminates in a scene that I'm not going to spoil, where they essentially get to a hotel room. And the way that the film deals with how Lucy proceeds after that point is extremely interesting, because as an audience member who's seen a lot of different films, I was sat there thinking, oh, well, this is going to go this way. And it doesn't. And again, I'm trying my best not to spoil anything here, but it's interesting in how it unfolds, and it makes sense actually in the way that it unfolds. And I quite liked that kind of uniqueness to it that I'd not seen it a lot in films like this. After the film, Mikey came over and asked me what I thought about it, and he mentioned how there were no explosions or any kind of big budget set pieces, and there was a bit of a joke about the fact that in a number of different scenes his actors were using his own record collection, and actually they were the most dangerous scenes that they had to film. And what I think Mikey was sort of alluding to or getting at is that he knows it's a no-frills film. He knows it's a very kind of like social realist, very small, again, low-budget film that relies heavily on the strength of its script, and with that, the strength of its performances. Now, I have to say this, Steve Oram is absolutely fantastic in this film, and his comic timing is second to none. His improvisation, as we will get to in a second, is amazing, as is Eilis Cahill as Lucy, who again puts in this absolutely stellar performance where I began to think about this after I came out of the film, the trajectory of her character, where she starts off in a certain place, and because of her dependency on pills and the fact that she chooses not to take them, her personality changes, her outlook on life changes. She becomes a little bit more pessimistic. The filter kind of disappears. And just the performance on that level then of her being a kind of straight and narrow average worker to her then move into this unfiltered, reactive person is an absolute credit to Eilis's performance. Overall, Mindset is very funny, very sharp, very witty, with a smattering of improvisation. Now, they mentioned this again in the Q&A, that while the script was quite rigid, and they stuck to the script quite rigidly because of the 11-day shoot and the budget and all that kind of stuff, there was an allowance to have some sort of improvisation, and the absolute masters of the craft being Steve and Eilis, in that there were certain, lines about fish fingers and things like that were just thrown in and actually improvised, and it just added more to the kind of authenticity of their relationship. Ultimately, I am very, very happy that Mindset was made, not just because I enjoyed the final product, and I did. It's one of the best films I've seen this year, and I've laughed most at this film this year than anything else that I've seen so far, but also because I know of how passionate Mikey is and his crew are, and how determined they were to get this film off the ground and finally get a feature film off the ground. I'm thrilled that it was at Manchester Film Festival, because it meant that I was able to see it and it was easy for me to get there. I was thrilled to see them all again yesterday, as I mentioned, including Ali, who came along, who was he was in the year below me at university, and we were all kind of on the same film course, so it was great to catch up with everybody. And I sincerely mean this. I wish the film and everyone involved in it the best of luck moving forward. I know that it's been entered into a couple more festivals. I hope it manages afterwards to find a home somewhere that will allow an audience as wide as possible to see it, maybe on something like a movie, or another sort of streaming service like that. But I can only wish everyone the best. Hope that even tonight's awards maybe go in the favour of Mindset at MANIFF, and best of luck again to everybody moving forward involved in the production of Mindset. So that wraps it up for MANIFF this year. It's been very interesting, and I feel extremely lucky and fortunate to have been part of the number of different things that I've done this year. So my Zoom conversation with Kirby McClure before the festival really kicked off, and getting to see Spaghetti Junction before it aired at the festival, going to Wolf, the opening night gala film, and seeing that, going to Bisping, meeting Michael Bisping, talking to Michael Hamilton, and the festival, of course, giving me the opportunity to catch up with a number of different people, Mikey, Matt, Ali, who I'd not seen in 10 years. And I'm very thankful to the festival. I'm very thankful to Neil, the festival director. And I hope, and I'll be looking out for my press pass next year for MANIFF 2023, where I'll hope to do a little bit more than just 4 films, but it all depends on, obviously, teaching commitments and all that kind of stuff. So if you've not yet listened back to any of our MANIFF coverage, go back, listen to Spaghetti Junction, which was the first one, then Wolf, then Bisping, and obviously you've just listened to Mindset. It's been an absolute joy to cover this festival, and I hope to do it again next year, as I mentioned. So in the meantime, you can help support Farrand on Film by going over to our sponsors, Offworld Tees, and using the code Farrand, that's FARRAND, for 15% off your order. Follow me on Twitter at Adam Farrand. Follow the podcast account at Farrand on Film. Go and follow the Mindset team. They're on Instagram, Mindset Movie. Mikey's on Instagram, Middleman Productions. And stay safe, look after each other, and we will see you next time.